Good afternoon and welcome on into another episode of the TitleTown Rundown here on YouTube. He is Kyler Quelch. I am Joey Matroni. We're delighted to be back with you to talk some more Boston sports, and we're going to get into some Merrimack as well. But as it being the sport that is in season as we speak, let's start it off with the Boston Red Sox. And Kyler, for me, it's just a lot of the same story with the Red Sox and how things have been going. They lose 2 out of 3 most recently to the Atlanta Braves, who are the best team in baseball up to this point. And despite some strong pitching, it really comes back to the offense and how much struggle they've had so far this year. And there has been a tweet circling around Red Sox Twitter from Pat Brown of the Play Tessie podcast that I'm going to pull up right here, and it basically does encapsulate the whole offensive struggle within one sentence. If the Sox were a league average offense, which averages 4.5 runs per game, their record would be 32-14, which would be right up there for the best record in baseball. So the struggles on offense really have been the big detriment to the team up to this point in the year.
Absolutely. I mean, you took it right out of the notes, Joey. I'll credit myself on that one. But you know what? Look, it's a disgrace to this franchise. We are the title town, meaning we expect results. And look, if their entire pitching staff was horrible, their defense was horrible, there was nothing going for them, I would say, okay, it's a lost year, whatever. I still might say that, and we'll definitely discuss that later on in this show, as I did pose some questions relating to the trade deadline. But watching this offense, they can't hit a beach ball. I put that in my notes as well. They can't hit a beach ball. Do we need Joey to start taking swings now? Like, this is ridiculous. I used to play baseball with Little League. Do I qualify to be bunting with runners on and nobody out? Like, is that what it's going to come down to? I mean, okay, this is what it comes down to for me. If we still had Mookie Betts and Kyle Schwarber here, then this would be title town. We would be talking and Bregman. Let's add Bregman to that too. If you had Bregman, Betts, and Schwarber, you'd have the best offense in the MLB with the best pitching staff and the best defense. So, do I think that we really need to be talking about, oh my goodness, like, yeah, we're really bad on offense? You know why we're bad? Because we have no investment. We have no buy in. Okay, I understand that this is a business. I understand that. I don't need to go to business class. I understand. But as a fan and somebody who's covering the Red Sox, we want better for our franchise. And when your pitching staff, with the exception of Brian Bayo, is giving you start after start of 3 or less runs a game, you should be able to score 4.5, 5 runs a game to win the
Yeah,
game.
absolutely. And this is gonna you mentioned Brian Bayo earlier. This is kind of the biggest piece of conversation that comes after um game three yesterday. They lose by a final score of 8-1 on a late inning RBI double by Nick Sogard for the lone run for the Sox. That really means nothing in the grand scheme of things. Once again, as you said, Brian Bayo struggled, but things decided things changed, I should say, in terms of how the game was being approached by Chad Tracy. They let Brian Bayo go back to a starting role after coming out of the bullpen as the bulk guy after Giovanni Morant opened in the previous 2 games that Brian Bayo pitched in, and there was a stark difference from him in how those starts went. I have those numbers here as well. In 7 games as a starter this season, Bayo has pitched 30 2/3 innings with a 7.38 ERA and 11% K rate and an 11% base on balls rate. And then as the bulk follower or the bulk guy out of the bullpen after the opener. He's done that in 2 games for 13 and a third innings with a 1.35 ERA, a 24 K percentage, and a 4% walk rate.
I think I think that was a little higher. I think it was a 9, wasn't it? A 9? A
9.
9.68?
Oh, the ERA? Maybe.
Yeah, it's abysmal. Okay, I put that in the notes. It's abysmal as a starter. But you know what? Look, as a bulk guy in 13 innings, he was much more effective, as you said, Joey. And so why are we not going with what works? Okay,
That's exactly.
this is another thing that bothers me about this team. When we find something that works, we change it. Why? I'm sorry, but why? I mean, I think I can do a better job coaching this team than Chad Tracy. No offense to Chad Tracy, go back to coaching T-ball or wherever. But it's great that he coached 14 guys. That's meant for Hallmark Channel, not ESPN. Let's go. I think we need a little bit more effort from just the organization for the players to be motivated to play. I mean, okay, I think they're motivated defensively and stuff, but they need a little more. They need a push. And I do think, I hate to say, their home run numbers would be a lot different with Kyle Schwarber. They would be a lot different with Kyle Schwarber. They would be different with Mookie Betts. They would be different with Alex Bregman. So, I don't know. I look at this and I'm like, you know what? I am a diehard Red Sox fan. I grew up in Vermont. We are diehard, like we will die Red Sox fans. But I want to be alive for the next championship.
Yeah. It is interesting. You talk about the offense again, Tyler. It hasn't been a fundamental offense to say the very least up to this point in the season. You mentioned some of the power numbers that they lack. They're second to last in home runs this season with 33. I think we had is the exact number. And then similar, their on base percentage is only 666 as a team to go along with the team batting average of 235, which is obviously above that Mendoza line of 200 that's used league wide as kind of a tipping point for batting average. But overall, it's just watching these games, it shows you just how lost they kind of seem at certain points in games on the offensive side, especially. I've lost confidence in the offense, especially when they have runners in scoring position. That's been that's been a struggle and a stat that's always looked at throughout this season. And there were a multitude of times, especially in this series against Atlanta, where they had a runner on second and nobody out and couldn't get the runner over and get the runner in, which seems like a really simple thing because it takes 2 fly balls to get the runner from second to home, assuming that they're deep enough for the runners to tag up. But even then, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a fly ball. It comes down to um, whether or not you can hit the ball the opposite way, away from where the runner is going to be going to advance. And that's even become a struggle at times, especially in these recent years when the strikeout has been such an issue for these Red Sox teams.
Well, I'm gonna go back to being an old school baseball guy. Like I like some of the new school things that you can incorporate. Like I like some of the analytics or whatever to kind of illustrate what's going on. However, what happened to just putting the ball in play and scoring the run? Like, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. You need the run because you know what? You're 2 runs off from the basement. So, I mean, let's be honest. Runs scored. They're only 2 out from the San Francisco Giants, who got Rafael Devers, ironically. So that's kind of funny. But at the same time, it's like, what are we doing here with that? I get that you want to drive the ball, and it's kind of a lot like the NBA in the three, how we're relying more on the home run ball. I understand it, but at the same time, if you want to win games, and certainly you do because you're playing great defense and you're pitching very well, you need to put the ball in play to just score the run. Be okay with getting that extra run per game. Because if you got that extra run per game, you would be in first place in your division and you'd be one of the best teams, if not the best, in the league. So why not try plopping the ball to center field and scoring that run, or advancing them to third, or a grounder and advance them? There's nothing wrong with that. But here's what it comes down to for me, and I apologize for kind of dominating here, but what it comes down to for me is Craig Breslow not allowing this team to play that fundamental game. Look, he's doing a lot of good things as well. I certainly don't think it's all negative, but when I look at what like Breslow does with this team and versus like what the Cardinals did in the early 2000s, I think you have to be like, hey, this is certainly not what we're looking to do. I mean, because the Cardinals in those days, they relied on the fly ball or the sacrifice or, whatever, the ground ball to move them over. They relied on that, but they also had guys who could hit the ball too. And I think you do have guys who can hit the ball, but you don't have star players who get those crunch time hits, like the Bregmans, the Schwarber especially. Schwarber, two guys on, he's either going to draw that walk, he's going to get that one runner in, or he's going to drive them all home. And that's what you need. That's what you're lacking. But you know why they haven't done that? Because they're saving money, because they just want the business model and the Hawaii vacation at this point.
Yeah, and I think what you're getting to there is the lack of home run production. It comes down to the roster construction, the moves that were made. You sign Isaiah Connor Falefa to a $6 million deal when he has not proven to be anywhere near worth $6 million. You make a trade with the Milwaukee Brewers to get Caleb Durbin and Andrew Monasterio, who are fine players. Caleb Durbin could be up for a Gold Glove the way he's playing defensively over at third base, but his average has been below 200 all season. He's only got one home run, but the analytic aspect of how the Red Sox are, they don't really go away from trying to hit a home run no matter what their roster looks like. And I think that is kind of what's preventing them from getting these wins. And I wonder how deep that philosophy really does run in the organization.
Yeah, and I also question how they're developing players as well. Because how come we trade players away and they become good all of a sudden? Like Kyle Harrison, for example, in the Caleb Durbin trade, or David Sandlin in AAA for the White Sox. Like, I feel like we've never been great at developing players as an organization, but I feel like it's gotten worse because I feel like there is so much inter-organization conflict that we could create a comedy series or like a drama series off of it. Like pick your poison with that. That inter-conflict comes from lack of communication, as I've been saying for weeks with this John Henry whole ordeal. And I want to bring up something from a few nights ago. There's this guy who I follow, who's a big Bostonian. Instead of singing Sweet Caroline, he's singing Sell the Team. Sell the Team. Like, what are we like? fans are losing faith here. It's obvious. We've been hanging in there for a few years. Yes, we've been spoiled as young kids, I think, Joey, especially you because you were born a little bit after me, but certainly we've been spoiled. However, I don't think we can say that we're asking for a whole lot here. We're asking for one or two bats and we'd be in this thing. Like I genuinely feel that way. I think we're looking for leader. We're also looking for this word called leadership from the top to the bottom. Why not go get a veteran guy like an Alex Bregman, who you could have gotten for a couple extra million and the no trade thing? And why not? He would have even been willing to take less money, and I truly believe that. He loved it in Boston. I just
And he gave a certain the leadership aspect that you're lacking. And before I get back to you, Tyler, I also wanted to mention that the guy who kind of falls into that role of the de facto leader on this team, just in terms of that veteran aspect, is Trevor Story, who
oh
has
my
since
god,
hit
he's
the
a story in his own right.
IL with a sports hernia, and the most recent news with him is that he is currently determining whether or not it is the right decision for him to have surgery, which would obviously keep him out for a longer period of time, which then on the field could see Marcelo Meyer make the transition over to shortstop, which is truly the position he should be playing. He came up as a shortstop. It's his natural position, but they wanted to find other
They're
ways
screwing
to.
around with things that already work.
They wanted to find a way to get him on the field while still keeping Trevor Story after knowing the 2024 that he had, or 2025, the previous year up until this one, I should say. And then it's been up and down between that, and has not improved from what this year was. And it just comes down to now you don't really have that. And another aspect of the Trevor Story uh, thing is that he was sort of blindsided, is a way I guess I could say it, with the firing of Alex Cora, and he was kind of up in the air about what the direction of the Red Sox were after the firing of Cora, and he had a personal conversation with Craig Breslow after that, trying to kind of get on the same page about where they were going, and now he might not be a part of the team that we see on the field coming up. But they come in to tonight's game against the Kansas City Royals, who are also struggling at this point in the season. The Sox come in with a record of 19-27, and the Kansas City Royals come into tonight's game with a record of 20-27. So only one game better than the Red Sox. But just looking at the division standings in between the American League East and the American League Central, the Sox, who are 19-27, 11 and a half games out of first place. The Royals at 20-27, only 5.5 games out of first place. So you can see the talent discrepancy there between the American League East and the American League Central, which we've known about for years. That's not a secret. So it's going to be a deeper hole for the Sox to dig out of, but going up against a team like the Royals could get them in a situation where they could maybe build some momentum, but a lot of it's going to come down to how the offense continues to play, if they improve or if they don't get better. And then it becomes a question of, Kyler, that I'll pose to you, is how long can this pitching staff continue to pitch stellar start after stellar start before something has to give?
Yeah, listen, I feel like eventually the arms are gonna fall off, the wheels are gonna fall off. It's just a matter of when. I think it's a ticking time bomb, so to speak. But I look at the I look at where they are, and honestly, I think it could fall off as soon as the end of June, early July. I really do already. The only reason why I'm saying that is we're so reliant on our arms right now that those arms are
Hmm.
going to fall off. Like they just are. And I love what Aroldis Chapman's been able to do. He's a potential trade candidate. I hate to say that. But at this point, we don't know what direction we're going in. And I think that is more the problem than anything. But certainly, I just look at what is being proposed, and I just want to pose a suggestion to ownership. Pick a direction. Are you going to be mediocre? Are you going to be horrible? Are you going to be good? Are you going to be great? Like, pick a direction, please. And stop toying around with Marcelo Meyer playing this position or that position, or Donald Duck, for that matter, playing first base versus outfield versus pitching. Like, we gotta chill out with that. And second, look, I think we have a good group of players. I think we have a dysfunctional organization. And I don't even know how to fix that, Joey. And I have a couple questions for you. What is your expectations for the trade deadline, early edition, and what would you rather do at this point in time?
I agree with you that I think they do need to pick a direction. These past couple years, they've decided to make moves at the deadline that are trying to improve the team, but they only improve them um, marginally, and then it ends up to a point where you're only um, getting to the wild card round, and then obviously last season they lose to the Yankees in the first round, in the wild card round, I should say, which hurts on multiple levels, obviously, because you're out of the playoffs and you lose to your most bitter rival. But I think they get right, and I think if they're gonna make moves, they come. You start with the veterans, so and there are some veterans that are doing well that could be useful to playoff teams or teams on the brink of the playoffs. So you look at moving on from guys like Aroldis Chapman. Although he's been great, he hasn't blown a save at all yet this year. And then Sonny Gray, who's been a pleasant surprise in the starting rotation as well. Are those guys that you move for younger prospects and just give other guys opportunities? We haven't seen Christian Campbell at the major league level in a very long time.
Gave him
A
a
lot of
bad
that,
contract way too early.
has to do with his bat not really translating to the major league level outside of those first couple of weeks in the major leagues. But then, obviously, things change for rookies when major league starting pitchers start to figure out your weak spots. So maybe if trades come down the line, Christian Campbell gets another opportunity at the big league level, and then you're looking at guys now who are not on the team, or not with the team, I should say, in Garrett Crochet and Roman Anthony, who are on the injured list. At this juncture of the season, and it would mean a lot for them to be a part of this team. But even Roman Anthony really hasn't translated to exactly what the Red Sox were hoping. And I think I touched a little bit on it last week as well. It was a lot to put a pressure on a guy who's now 22 years old to be the bulk of this offense when he really doesn't have a lot of experience facing major league pitching on a nightly basis.
When he goes to the Yankees, we're all gonna be sorry. Because look, we are doing a horrible job of developing our young talent. Sure, we have guys that are talented. That's not a problem for us, in my opinion. It's how we're approaching the game and how we're bringing guys up and the lack of direction. And I don't know how to fix all of those issues in one. If I was, I'd be paid millions to do it. But I think the first step you have to take is define your direction, define who your people are going to be for the next 5 years, whether it's GM, coach, kind of side supporting staff. Figure out who those people are going to be, commit to those people for 5 years, and that'll be the direction of the team. Because, or not just that in the direction, but you have to have those two things in concurrence. And I think that right now, I just feel like we are lacking that ability, and that just creates more confusion, more anger from the fans. Fans want to see wins. And I think even if they got to the playoffs, we would all be supportive. We would all be there at the games. I would drag you to a game and say, Joey, you don't have a choice. Let's go to a game. I will buy you a beverage. It'll be a soda. It'll be a soda, but it's still a beverage. And we would have fun. We eating Fenway Franks. But instead, we have to talk about how dysfunctional this ownership is and how basically the fans are just buying merch at this point. Is that even really worth it for us as fans? Is it? Because you know what? Usually when people say boycott, I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. But the last 5 years or 6 years, ever since like the COVID era, we could even go 7 if we really wanted to. Since they've won a championship, it's been
Hmm.
horrible. The whole attitude changed. The strategy isn't paying off. And the fans literally just boo John Henry and tell him to sell the team. And him avoiding the media, I don't think helps either. I know why he's avoiding the media because he doesn't want to really talk about it. But the reality is, Red Sox fans and Boston sports fans are awesome because they're going to let you have it when you deserve it. And I hate to say that he deserves it, but he's making his own bed, and he's got to lay in it.
Yeah, I mean, just to wrap it up, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if and when and if ever the Red Sox can really get some good games strung together, dig themselves out of an 8 games below 500 hole. They'll go up against the Kansas City Royals tonight. As I mentioned, Sonny Gray will be on the mound for the Red Sox, and the starting lineup tonight will be as follows: with Jaron Duran leading off in center field, Mickey Gasper, the DH. He's been a nice, pleasant surprise since coming up, and he had three. He went 3 for 4 in his debut. Has leveled off a little bit since then, but he's been a nice spark plug, I would say, relatively for the offense. Willie Abreu batting third. Wilson Contreras, who had the decisive home run and the lone win for the Sox in the series against the Braves. Then Masataka Yoshida getting the start in left field. Andrew Monasterio at short. Marcelo Meyer at second. Connor Wong catching behind the plate. And Nick Sogard in for Caleb Durbin once again at third base.
And just one more point, Joey. If you rely on guys like Mickey Gasper and Nick Sogard to get you offense, that means your offense isn't very good because they aren't consistent guys. So we'll see what
They
happens.
they haven't really gotten the chance to be those consistent reps yet, especially Gasper. Obviously, Sogard spent some time as a platoon guy up with the major league team, but he was up and down at times as well. But yeah, you're looking for guys to step up because Darren Duran hasn't been his normal self. Wilson Contreras has been arguably the best move of the offseason, making that trade. Sonny Gray has been good when he's been healthy, so it'd be good to see if he can string together another nice start. But without Trevor Story, who was supposed to be one of your top guys. He really hasn't been, so it gives other guys an opportunity to step up. But again, you look at the series against going back to Philadelphia, they only allowed 6 runs in that series and lost the series. And then they obviously give up 8 runs in the game 3 loss against Atlanta, but then the each of the first 2 games were final scores of 3-2. They won one after the Wilson Contreras home run that I mentioned, and then they lost one on a Mike Yastrzemski walk-off. Another thing to the heart of Red Sox fans as the grandson of Carl Yastrzemski that I'm sure a lot of them didn't like. But now we'll move on to the college side very quickly. We'll get an opportunity to talk about our Merrimack College Warriors, who are on the baseball side getting ready to start up their MAC conference tournament after a stellar 20-10 conference record, moving their overall record to 26-27. They earned themselves the 4 seed in the first round of the MAC conference baseball tournament, and they will take on Canisius on Wednesday at 3:20 p.m. We're filming the second episode of this week on Wednesday as well. So we might be filming that as the game is going on. So maybe we'll have some updates throughout that as well. But again, Kyler, stellar season, especially conference-wise, for the Warriors, and it is another testament to the improvement that we've seen overall athletically for Merrimack College.
Absolutely. I'll start it off, and then you can kind of add whatever you would like, Joey. But certainly, we're known as a hockey school at Merrimack, so and we're not really known for our baseball program. However, they're 26-27 overall, and they only had 10 losses in their conference. They led their conference in home runs, RBIs, and balls on base, which are all good indicators of a great offense. Their pitching is all right, but their offense kind of compensates for it. But what I really like about it is you got a lot of guys who equally contribute, similar to kind of how the hockey team did during the winter months. I really like what Brooks Craig has done overall. He's a guy that I really like. And Joey from Frementino, McGovern, DeShiro, where all those guys, and Jaden Hamilton, and what they've all done is just remarkable on the offensive side of the ball. And I think it was something worth talking about because they never make the playoffs quite like this. So I think we're seeing just great athletic development as we're a growing institution.
Yeah, on the baseball side, all those guys you just mentioned have averages over 300. They have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys total with the batting averages over 300. To my quick glance here, Greg Castino leads the Warriors in home runs with 13 on the season to go along with 54 RBIs, where he also leads the team. Joey Fermartino not far behind with 52 RBIs. Once again, adding to the stat that you mentioned earlier, Kyler, with the Warriors leading the league in runs batted in. And they lead the league in walks as well. Looking at the stats now, progressively throughout the season, I would guess that teams became more and more worried about Joey Martino as he finished the season with 47 total walks.
Yeah, I mean, I also look at pardon me. I also look at this too as when you have 3 or 4 guys like the Red Sox should do across sports, which you'll probably hate me for. But it's but when you have guys who are threats, you're gonna get on base more. You're gonna have other guys step up in moments, but I feel like they have a lineup that's really complete and ready to compete, if you will. And what I noticed is that they're tied with two teams for the same conference record, and they're only
Mm-hmm.
2 games off of Ryder, the number one seed. So you never know what can happen. I'm not sure we're like the number one team, but I think that we're at least competitive, and I think it just speaks volumes to what our athletics department has really done over the last couple of years to get us ready to be competitive in every sport.
Yeah, and more specifically, on the baseball side, I wanted to mention that the Warriors are 6-1 in their last 7 games, and in those 6 wins, they've scored double-digit runs. So you mentioned it. The offense is the fuel of this Merrimack Warrior baseball team, and that is how they're gonna get their wins if they do make a run in this conference tournament.
Yeah, I was looking at the pitching stats and I'm like, uh, maybe not the most shareable stats of all time, but I do think we do have a chance with that offense, as you mentioned, and I just want to just kind of really shout it out that I'm proud of what our Merrimack baseball team has been able to do, especially offensively. It's a huge improvement from where we've been the last few years, and teams that are the hottest tend to go furthest in the playoffs, right? So you never know.
Mm-hmm. And they're gonna take on Canisius, who come in with an overall record of 21-25. Um, they
In the
were 17
conference.
and they were 17-13 in conference and
Mm.
21-25 overall.
All right.
They finished the regular season by sweeping Siena, where they also did have some strong offensive outputs in those games. 15-2, 13-6, and 10-0 in 7 innings in those 3 games respectively. So it's going to be two offenses that know they can put up runs in that first round matchup between the Warriors and the Golden Griffins.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to offensive execution.
You can look at it from that perspective, or another thing that'll be interesting to look at. We've been talking a lot about the offenses, but you can also look at the pitching staffs, and maybe whichever one has more success on that end is who we're going to see end up coming out on top of that one as well.
I actually think that the best. I actually think that for us, like, kind of what scares me is more so the pitching side of it. But
Mm-hmm.
I do think, like I said, I do think that with us having guys who are threats in the lineup, it certainly puts more pressure on their pitching staff to execute as well. Both pitching staffs have a lot of pressure to really execute their pitches and play good defense. I know we've been talking a lot about offenses, but fundamental baseball, again, the words fundamental baseball. If I could make $1 for every time I say those words on
You'd
this
be one rich.
podcast, I'd be rich.
You'd be
I'd
one
probably make 20
rich
bucks.
man.
But yeah, it's all about fundamental baseball and just playing the game the right way. And we wish our fellow Warriors the best, right, Joey?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be sure to keep an eye on that one, and as we get set to film the second episode of the week on Wednesday, we'll be sure to provide whatever updates we can as they come along with that game. Once again, it'll be Merrimack and Canisius taking on each other at 3:20 p.m. on Wednesday afternoon. And then we are going to continue along. We'll go to the NHL as they get set for the conference finals very soon. Tyler, I know you wanted to start with some thoughts on Vegas.
Yeah, so the reason why I want to talk about Vegas isn't because of their recent performance. They obviously are a good team, but I wanted to start with Tortorella, John Tortorella. He's one of the most fiery coaches and controversial in the NHL. Listen, I know that the NHL is trying to crack down on being more politically correct and all this. I love the coaches who just go off script. They do what they're not supposed to do. And I wanted to look a little bit more into what Tortorella did because he got fined 100,000, and then the team lost their second round pick, which is kind of very high for a
Yeah,
violation on the team. So I was like, what on earth happened? I saw this headline, and I just kept seeing inappropriate, like violated the terms. Okay, excuse me. Can somebody put this into words for me? I finally looked it up, looked deeper into it, and what I found out is that Tortorella would not meet with the media. He kept the door shut after their win to advance to the Western Conference Championship Series. And he's supposed to open it to the media, and he did not. There weren't the proper amount of players speaking with the media after the game, too. So there definitely wasn't. But this brings up a conversation that's interesting to me. Yes, I know he has prior violations. Yes, I know he's not everybody's favorite. But it brings up the question of, is political correctness something that should be happening in hockey? It's hockey. It's always been known to be scrappy, off script, great guys who just give their all and they are honest. And I think Tortorella is a little bit of an old school coach. He can't just coach like a rebuilding team. We saw that in Philly, obviously. He needs to coach more of a veteran core. But it brings up that question of, is there a place for a coach like that in the NHL? I say there is. I love that type of coaching. But in a time where there's a lot more sensitivity to political correctness, kind of like, where are we with that? Um, like I said, the Knights are going on to the next round. I also have questions to why he wouldn't just meet with the media even for 5 minutes after it, because you just won. I get it. I get the distractions piece, but why not just meet with the media? Because you know your track record is very extensive and very controversial. Why don't you try to fix that? That's
yeah.
the other side of it.
To me, this one doesn't come down to as much political correctness as he was just trying to let um, his guys enjoy the victory. From a Tortorella perspective, this was obviously a guy that Vegas wanted because he's a well-known coach within the NHL. They fired Bruce Cassidy, a former Bruins head coach, with 8 games left to go in the regular season, and they immediately went out and hired John Tortorella as the interim coach. And to me, it really is just, it comes down to wanting to have the guys enjoy the victory, as I already said. But then, like you said, Kyla, I don't think there's much of an issue with having to go out and answer questions, especially exploring careers in media like we are. It's important for um, reporters and those involved in the sport to get the information. And it isn't like they just lost, they won the game. So he's going to be in a good mood, want to talk about things that went well, and get the chance to look forward to the next series after that.
I think that's a little
But
odd because you would want the fan experience, wouldn't you?
Odd how? What exactly?
I mean, wouldn't you want the fans to experience it with kind of the players and seeing what's going on? Certainly, there'd have to be some blurring out of some words and whatever, but you would
Yeah,
want
I
to
mean,
see that experience. And I think
yeah,
from an NHL experience perspective, that's a hey, you have a lot of violations. Why are you not letting the fans enjoy this and correcting yourself? We gave you so many chances, but I also don't understand taking away a second round pick. That's a bit much, in my opinion.
yeah. That rule I'm not too familiar on. I mean, it is that's an important pick, obviously. And it becomes an even more interesting piece of the story, knowing that Tortorella is obviously only currently the interim head coach, so he loses a pick for a team that he might not even coach next year. But if they were to say go on and win the cup, I don't see why you at least bring them back to start the year um, next season.
It's a very weird
Um,
situation that I wanted to discuss because I'm like, wait, what? And then I also want to
yeah,
understand why, I'm just going to verbalize this. Why do we have to say things in ways that I don't understand? Like half the articles I read were he violated policy. Okay, which policy did he violate? And then it's like, oh, he did that? Oh, like,
yeah.
like that's
It's
a ticky tack. This whole
it's
thing is
again it's again more of an understanding that you want as we're looking at it from a general hockey fan's perspective. You want to know what really did go down, especially if you're not plugged into by the minute things happening with the Vegas Golden Knights. But I would venture a guess that he'll be at the rest of his media availability for the remainder of the postseason.
oh, I bet the
Um,
ownership will get on him and the GM will be like, hey, you gotta like go out there and say hello to the media.
Yeah, and I think especially with draft picks being involved, the higher ups are gonna want to hang on to those draft picks.
But if I'm the league, why a second rounder? Like
That
why?
one, that one I can't answer for you. That one I would have to do more research on, and maybe we can dive deeper on it in a later episode if we so choose. But let's finish out this afternoon's episode talking a little bit about the NFL. The big piece of news coming out in the past couple of days is the Aaron Rodgers signing back to the Pittsburgh Steelers for 1 year, worth 20 up to 25 million, 22 million with $3 million in incentives. That one I had a feeling was gonna happen all the way through. It just took a while to get going. It only made sense for Rodgers, despite his age, to come back for one more year, especially with Mike McCarthy being the new head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers after the dismissal of Mike Tomlin at the end of last season and their loss to the Houston Texans in the postseason, in the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see how the Steelers end up this year and if Mike McCarthy can get out of the Steelers what Mike Tomlin did for so many years and get them back into the postseason.
Yeah, I think he'll get them back into the postseason. I think that's pretty much what the Steelers do, is they get to the playoffs or they're very competitive. I don't think they'll be Super Bowl contenders. I, Mike McCarthy only won one ring, so I don't really look at it that way. But it was not a surprise that Aaron Rodgers, the most controversial QB in the league, was coming back for one more year, especially after his former head coach was named the Steelers head coach. Wonder why that happened. Like, you know what?
Yeah,
Like
I'm
everybody
sure.
knows what's gonna happen there.
I'm sure the possibility of bringing back Rodgers played a role in getting McCarthy
Yeah, do you
into
want to go
the.
on AARP benefits or do you want to come back for one more year and then get the life alert button? It's like it's kind of like the epitome of knowing what's going to happen there. But good for Rodgers. He's one of the craziest QBs of all time, but he's a great player. I mean, not what he used to be, obviously, but he's somebody who will be a Hall of Fame QB at some point. Give him one more year. He'll make the team somewhat competitive, and why not? Why not just run it back one more time?
All right, and then to finish it off, we're going to take a look at a couple of schedules. Obviously, with this being a Boston-based podcast, we couldn't go into this episode and not talk at least a little bit about the Patriots schedule. But then this is where it's going to differ a little bit. After we go through the Pats, Kyler is going to give you a Giants perspective. Now, obviously, we know that the Patriots and Giants are a bit of a rivalry, but Kyler spent some time in the Massachusetts area now in these past couple of years. So his hatred for the Patriots has kind of turned into learning how Patriots fans are, and obviously has some Boston fandom outside of the Giants. But looking at this schedule, obviously the Super Bowl rematch jumps off the page immediately, and this is gonna spark a conversation, Tyler, that I wanted to ask you generally about the NFL. The Pats and Seahawks are opening up the season on Wednesday this year, and I wanted to get your thoughts briefly on the expansion of how many different days NFL football is being played during the season.
See, I like that. I know there's people that don't. I know there's traditionalists like Mike Felger out there who are like, I get enough football. I love football any day of the week. As long as it's not, too, I guess like too disruptive. But honestly, I'm pro football. I want to see football any day of the week. And when it's the Super Bowl match or rematch, that's that's a seat getter. That's a revenue maker. That is a viewership heaven, if you will.
Yeah,
And
you're
so
definitely gonna.
like having a primetime game during a traditional off day for football, I'm all for that if it's a primetime game. Now if it's the two bottom teams in what I call the awful bowl, do I really want to watch that? Yeah, I still will, and I always like a good game. But if it's a primetime game where it's two contenders, or in this case, two teams that were just in the Super Bowl, absolutely all for it. Not sure I like it for the Patriots though, because their first game is against Seattle. Um,
Yeah, it's definitely a tough start, and I'll go through some of the other games as well. Um,
I think their first four games are the toughest of the year for them.
yeah, I mean, Pittsburgh's always gonna put up a fight. The Super Bowl rematch is gonna have a different energy about it. Obviously, with it being the first game of the season as well. Um, Jacksonville made the playoffs last year. They've gotten progressively better, especially as Trevor Lawrence has become more comfortable
Their first
under center for them. Buffalo, always a tough game. Obviously, each team that was away in that matchup last year won those games. The Patriots built a lead in the game in New England, but Buffalo ends up coming back and getting the win. And then in the game in Buffalo last year, that was the real emergence of Drake May in a primetime game. He takes down Josh Allen and the Bills. Stephon Diggs had an unbelievable game. Obviously, the Patriots don't have Stephon Diggs at the moment right now. Obviously, he's been found not guilty of all of his off the field charges recently, and the reunion between the Patriots and Stephon Diggs remains a possibility, but also you could see a trade for AJ Brown from the Patriots as they get as we get to that June 1st date marker. The game against Vegas will be interesting. I expect Fernando Mendoza, if he's not the week one starter, to probably be playing. Hope maybe he'll be playing in that game. That would be an interesting one to take a look at. From a Patriots fan perspective, they should beat the Jets. The Bears are going to be a tough game. Obviously, Caleb Williams got progressively better throughout last season. Uh, the Dolphins are a really interesting one. They're in obviously a rebuild phase with the first year under Jeff Hafley, and Malik Willis, I believe, is set to be their quarterback as we stand now. But for whatever reason, the Dolphins have always been a bugaboo for the Patriots. They were able to manage that last year, but you never know what's going to happen. Then November 8th against the Packers, and then after that, the Lions. The NFC North is a really tough division to get as your division to play against the NFC, and then after the bye week, the Chargers, the Bills again, the Vikings, and the Chiefs. We don't know obviously what the status of Patrick Mahomes is coming off of his season-ending injury.
I like how they've regrouped though. They've regrouped pretty nicely.
And then outside of the second matchup with the Jets and Dolphins, in between that is an AFC Championship rematch with the Denver Broncos. Obviously, Bo Nix didn't play in that AFC Championship game with the broken ankle, but we don't know what it's going to be like in the penultimate week of this upcoming season. And then to finish it off, Kyler, I'll switch it over. I can switch it over to the Giants, or do you have any general Patriots schedule thoughts?
Yeah, I think they have a really tough schedule this year. After everybody complained about how easy it was, now they're going to complain about how hard it is. But that's just the nature of it. Look, I think that that Seattle game to me, like that's Wednesday night. Totally like ready for that. I'll be back at Merrimack at that time, so definitely be watching that. Um, and I honestly think they just have a top to bottom tough schedule. Really, their only team that really isn't that good is Miami, and Miami's had their number over the years. So I get that they're rebuilding, but I still wouldn't take that lightly, and I feel bad for you as a you know as a friend, Joey, because I feel like that's going to be a tough schedule. I think the Giants' schedule is equally as tough, but certainly if the Patriots are prepared for this type of schedule, which they should be, they were the AFC champions. You have to expect the bar is going to get raised in terms of level of difficulty and expectations. So it is Boston. They are going to raise the expectations. You got to be ready for it. That's really my takeaway on that. But there are some
All
interesting
right,
games to me for sure. Buffalo and Seattle are definitely the ones that I'm interested in the most.
all right. Let's hop over now to the New York Giants, and I'll let you break this one down.
Yeah, sure. So we have we have Dallas and LA right away in primetime games, which I think is going to be fun. Then you're playing Tennessee, you're playing the Cardinals. Those are not really teams that are that good. I mean, the Cowboys, they have always kind of had our number. A little nervous about that. The Rams were really good last year. They made the playoffs, and Stafford was the MVP. Do we really want to play against that passing offense? Not really. Commanders, they have Jaden Daniels. If he's healthy, that could be a game. Again, another rivalry game that you have to win. The Saints, who knows what they're going to be. Then you got Texans, I believe, and that's another tough one. That's playoff team. CJ Stroud, decent quarterback. Defense pretty solid. Eagles, that really scares me. Saquon, the guy that we drafted, and then the 29 other guys on their defense that they've poached over the years. And then you got the Commanders again. That's just tough. Depending on where they are. Then you got Jacksonville, who made the playoffs, and then you have the Colts, who have Daniel Jones. If Daniel Jones is what he was last year, depends on what form you get of him. But that's kind of a wild card team. Again, I don't think they're the best, but they're not the worst either. They kind of fell apart in the second half of the season. But the first half, they were the best team in the league. So that's really hard. You have San Francisco. San Francisco's always good. Another kind of good playoff team. Then you got Seattle on top of that. And then Cleveland, okay, fine. We finally get a game that we can probably win pretty easily. And then you're playing another Monday Night Football game against the Lions, who didn't make the playoffs, but when healthy have proven to be a really good team. And then you're playing Dallas and the Eagles back to back. Now, I think Harbaugh is a great coach, and I want to talk about why I think we're in prime time so much. I mean, traditionally, we are in prime time a lot just because of us being a New York team and the hype around us. But this is a rough schedule. Yes, I know Dallas can be a little iffy, and I think if we play well, okay, sure, we match up with a lot of these teams. But you're playing the Rams week 2. You're playing, you're playing the Eagles. You're twice. You have to, obviously, but then you're playing teams like Jacksonville, San Francisco, Seattle, Detroit, and then 2 back-to-back conference games. That's not easy. And yes, there are a couple of games you can probably win in between there. But that's kind of how I look at it. It's going to be a grind. The reason why there's a lot of attention on us is because we have Coach Harbaugh, and I believe that he can bring it together, and I think he really has put together a good team. I think we're missing a second receiver and maybe a little bit of a better offensive line, but certainly the rest of the team looks pretty good. I thought our draft was really solid by getting a linebacker and by getting a guy who can help on that offensive line a little bit. It'll be interesting to see if they can really play or not. But Dart was decent for us when he had the right program going on. So I think with the right coach and the right systems, he'll be good. I really just question, can we win with this schedule? It's a tough one, and I don't know if you have any thoughts, Joey. I just think it is tough in terms of competitiveness. And if we make the playoffs, it's not going to be like the Patriots last year where it's like, oh my God, this is the easiest schedule. I think this is a hard schedule.
Yeah, I mean, we've now looking at the Patriots and the Giants. We looked at two different perspectives. Obviously, a team in the Patriots that went 14-3 last year, and lost in the Super Bowl to the Seahawks, as we mentioned earlier. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum were the Giants, who finished 4-13. But still, some tough games on both sides. You mentioned the you mentioned the draft for the Giants. I think they did really well in that. And getting Arvell Reese and Francis Mauigoa, obviously addressing two needs that you mentioned earlier. It's an interesting set of linebackers now. From an outside perspective, when I look at it, in Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, and now Arvell Reese as well. And then it can never hurt you to get an upgraded offensive line in Francis Mauigoa out of Miami.
Yeah, well, our downfall has been our offensive line for like 10 years now. So we need a little bit of help there. Andrew Thomas gets hurt, but he's great. And then everybody else, it's like, oh. So that's just kind of how I look at it. But I do think we are making steps to get better, and I think Harbaugh really brings us back to the spotlight because we are relevant again. I just caution, some of those games that people probably say, "Oh yeah, you win." Oh yeah, what are the Cowboys going to look like? What are the Lions going to look like? What are the Colts going to look like? Otherwise, you're facing teams that have proven time and time again they're in the postseason. So, okay, yes, you can beat the Cardinals. Yes, you can beat the Titans. Okay, sure. I'll give you those games. But and Cleveland too. But that's 3 wins. You got to beat everybody else in your conference, which I think you'll go toe to toe with. But it's not a slam dunk. Oh yeah, we're winning 8 games because of the way our schedule is. No, we're gonna have to work for those wins.
Yeah, with OTAs getting underway for a set of teams today, we'll be sure to keep up on big NFL news as it comes, especially with the Patriots and the Giants, as those are the two teams that the two of us follow respectively the most. But that's going to do it for this Monday, May 18th episode of the Titletown Rundown. Once again, he is Connor Quelch. I am Joey Matroni. Thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day.